I'm Bobby Ghosh with Time Magazine. This project came about because this summer we had Nate Rawlings, who had formerly been in the US Army and spent 2 tours of duty in Baghdad, come to us as a summer intern. And I knew I was going to go back to Iraq in the fall, and I asked Nate if he'd like to come along because I figured that would be an interesting perspective for me as a journalist going back to a place I'd spent nearly 5 years of my life, but also to have Nate go with me and see it from very different eyes. I thought it went very well. I thought we had quite an interesting 10 days there. It was quite unexpected how much access we got, not just to people, but also to places, the freedoms we had to move around. What was your takeaway from it?
Well, the entire trip, riding around in a soft-skinned vehicle without body armor, was a very intense experience for me.
This is what they used to call the green zone in Fallujah for the Americans.
Having been in Iraq at a time where there were lots of IEDs and where we drove on roads that at any given point would just erupt. The security situation has certainly improved. I couldn't believe we were able to go to Fallujah and that we were able to go to Ramadi, but I had very good friends who served as Marines and as Army soldiers in both places. And in both places they were just hell on earth for long periods of time.
I think when you finally met up with some of the soldiers that you trained there, that was a very emotional moment for you, and I was quite struck by how close your relationship was to these soldiers.
Do you remember when you guys gave me this belt as a gift? I wear it every day.
We did develop a tight bond. We lived on the same compound. We saw them every day. We spent a tremendous amount of time either training them, going on missions with them. Reuniting with Captain Hyder was definitely one of the best moments of this trip. Captain Hyder, and when I knew him, Lieutenant Hyder, was one of the best soldiers, Iraqi or American, that I've ever met. And he really believed in the cause for which they were fighting, which wasn't either protecting Sunnis or Shias, but just protecting his section of Baghdad.
I'm back for a very short time, and I'm back.
So it was a wonderful moment to get to see him and to hear that after they went to Sadr City for 2 years that they didn't lose a single soldier. Because the team that I commanded, we worried about them an awful lot. And my soldiers were very happy to hear that they were okay and that they've now moved on to another job.
For me, one of the cool things was being able to take you to my Baghdad, to take you to sort of streets and neighborhoods and stores and restaurants that were a big part of my life in Baghdad, and places where, for a time, particularly in 2006 and 2007, I myself was never able to go back to because they were in neighborhoods that had become very violent.
But that was amazing in that everyone who I spoke with, people who served us in restaurants, people who we interviewed, never treated me, any differently than anyone else. And that really was amazing to me. Obviously, if I'd been wearing body armor and a uniform, it would be a very different story.
One experience that stood out was when we went to Fallujah and we went to the school where there had been a shootout where American soldiers fired upon a crowd of Iraqi demonstrators. The name of the school used to be Al-Qaid, the leader, a reference to Saddam Hussein. Now it's called Al-Shuhada, the martyrs, to commemorate those who were killed here. For the years that I was there, I would always hear when I spoke to Iraqi insurgents that was the incident that set off the insurgency.
I believe that was a big turning point in the war that really started the insurgency and made it necessary for us to go back again and again and again.
Can we walk over to the bridge?
Yeah. But I also found it really powerful when we were at the bridge where the charred bodies of the contractors were hung. And that set off the 2 big battles for Fallujah when the American forces tried to retake the city. But now it's just a bridge, and people were driving across the bridge, they were going to the market. And so these are places where historic and tragic events took place, but now they've become just bridges and schools.
We were in Handia and we went to this place that had been an Al-Qaeda prison. It was an old abandoned chicken coop.
At night, we can hear the scream of the tortured people. We didn't know who the people who were tortured and who was torturing them, and nobody dared to come and see what's the situation.
And you can see how it would have been a terrifying, terrifying place.
We found bodies that have been eaten by dogs and other animals.
We found this piece of a human jaw. We found a piece of a human skeleton here, a jawbone with some teeth still intact. And the Islamic code requires that it be buried immediately.
Seeing, Ali bury the jawbone very quickly, I thought was a very respectful thing to do, and in addition to his belief that is an important part of the Muslim tradition to do that is just an important part of being a human being, and a respect for humanity that was missing from that place for a long time. Throughout the week, I kept hearing from different people, from journalists that we spoke with, and even a couple of American officers, the word empathy. And they said empathy is a very important thing to have if you're to understand Baghdad and you're to understand the Iraqis. I suffered a bit, but my suffering was not nearly in the realm of the suffering the Iraqis had while we were there. But I think by developing that empathy, I also developed a greater understanding of the city and what those people went through. And hopefully that'll have an impact if we ever decide to do something like this again.
حبيبي شلونك؟ شلونك؟ كل زين؟ ولا شوي زين؟ شوي زين؟ الفوت 43